I'm currently 4 days out from my biggest ever ultra endurance event so far, and I am terrified, but I know that the amount of value that I get from training this way has and will continue to be life-changing. And I don't mean that to sound dramatic, I do genuinely believe that. All of the years that I spent solely focusing on powerlifting and top-end strength has given me loads of value personally, and I still love training that way. I actually focused on some top-end strength today, but more on that later. At the other end of the spectrum, with endurance training, there's so much value to be found, and I feel that as an individual training at both ends of the spectrum, as a hybrid athlete, has given me loads of insight, value, and lessons about myself that I can use to develop moving forwards. And that's where I see the value in training this way, and why I genuinely believe it's been life-changing. Some of you might be aware, some of you might not. I have a podcast. It's called The Modern Mind. It is linked in the description down below, and we are on episode number 95, with the episode that's gone live today, in fact, being a Q&A on the 250 kilometers itself from me, myself, and I. So a pretty unexciting guest, if I'm being honest. But more recently, Lewis Robling, former professional rugby player turned ultra endurance athlete himself, and I had a conversation about what it is about ultras that we find so valuable. And that is exactly what today's video is going to be about. So before we dive into that, please do make sure to like the video, comment with your thoughts, feelings, and perspectives down below, and make sure that you've hit subscribe. Let's dive into it.
What do you think it is about these long endurance events? What is it that really helps us with that? Like, what it's such a
the unknown, the undistracted time, the exposure to the outdoor world, the elements to the experience. You know what? I think it's the simplicity. It's pretty. When you look at it on paper, you run 75k on day one, you run 50k on day two.
A to B.
A to B.
Something quite primal about it, in that, not to get too woo-woo, but if we look at the way we evolved and how we moved forward in communities and how we used to fend for food, it was very A to B. That's the goal type of system. There was no complexity to it. It was, there's a job to do. I've got a goal here. Moving from A to B was typically moving over long periods of time, running, hunting.
It's all measurable, isn't it? That's the key detail. Whereas life is actually, well, lifting, always a great example that I use. Training in general. But lifting was what made me fall in love with this process, because it's black and white. I always say that lifting, for me, when I was really suffering with my depression, ironically, allowed me to suffer for much longer because it was the only coping mechanism that I had. So whether that's a good or a bad thing, I'm not quite sure, because it allowed me to be miserable for longer, but also was the only thing that on a day-to-day basis stopped me feeling so miserable. So I'm still not quite sure how I feel about that one, but in a very grey, unpredictable, subjective day-to-day, weights on a barbell were black and white. So if I went into a gym and I had 90% for 3 sets of 3 and they moved well, and then I had, let's say, stiff leg deadlifts to follow up, and this week I was doing 152.5 kilos rather than 150, that is measurable, trackable progress, which is a win in a period of my life where I didn't feel like I was getting many wins. And by the sounds of things, for you, your ultra was distilling down and removing all of the grey area around this BJJ match in your head that was going on about failure, where you could then just set your focus on going from A to B, and if you got from A to B, that was a massive win, and that was the first time you'd felt like you'd won in a while, which therefore sort of opened the door to this new frame of reference and perspective, which allowed you to start thinking about things that you hadn't thought about for 10 years, perhaps.
Yeah, that was very eloquently put. It's the nail on the head. Any ultra that I've done since, specifically multi-stage stuff, where it's not like real life. You remove yourself from real life, really, with, like you said, one goal in mind. You've got yourself. It's very empowering, especially because you spend so much time on your own as well. And I love how you can break it down to just moving forward one step at a time. I remember finishing the first ultra, and it was very much like this. This is the ultimate life metaphor. It's the ultimate life metaphor. No matter what this course, no matter what life throws at you, you've got the choice. You can continue to move just as simple as one step at a time, and it kind of breaks it down and makes it a much more achievable goal than thinking about the big picture scary stuff, which, like you said, there's so many unknowns. There's so many unknowns in a race as well. You don't know how the terrain's going to be up on the mountain ridges. You don't know what the weather's going to do in half an hour. So yeah, maybe that's it.
So people often throw stones sometimes when people start doing a lot of exercise over a shorter period of time, and like to potentially present it as a coping mechanism rather than potentially an explorative one, shall we say. So do you think the journey that you've been on with ultra running has helped you understand the things that you've needed to understand to be at peace with who you are and what you want to achieve in life? Or, very point blank question, are you still almost masking some of the things that you need to confront in your own head through running towards the pain?
Depends how hard I convince myself. To start with, I was very much in the running away, using it to kind of turn the volume down in my head, to quieten the voices, and just to kind of keep. Again, there was no awareness, but I think with every experience, with every race, with every place that you see, the reason you do it evolves, it changes. And as you learn more and more about how you enjoy those things, then yeah, I feel like it's a difficult question to answer. There probably will always be an element of using it in that kind of slightly more negative way, because I don't think that part of you ever really leaves. It's always there. It's part of your experience, and it's part of makes you. But I feel like over the last few years, I've cultivated enough tools to be able to use it as something that is helpful and is helping me live a life that is aligned with who I really am, which is another part of what the therapy was so good at, and also like understanding your values, not from a sense of honesty, integrity, these blanket terms that really mean fuck all.
They're on walls and recruitment offices. Yeah,
sure. It's understanding your values from a point of what do you actually do? Like what do you turn to when shit hits the fan? That was something that I recognized within myself. That when shit hits the fan, I turn to exercise. I can trust exercise to make me feel better about myself. And yes, it might be a coping mechanism in that moment, but that coping mechanism might just create that little bit of space for me to address the thing that needs to address later. So I think definitely have started to use it more so as a way to kind of improve my life.
Yeah. I often find I tap into the past a little bit more when I'm right up against it, which is the thing that often makes me reflect on, are you trying to prove something to an older version of yourself here, or is this genuinely, in your heart of hearts, a self-discovery, forward motion exercise? And I think it is the latter, but I do sometimes find myself thinking, well, essentially, why the fuck are you doing this? I have to stand there and go, right, okay, let's reflect on the past. And I think a lot of it comes down to being very grateful for the fact that I get to do this stuff, having spent a period of my life with no concept of what the future looked like or whether the future even had me in it. And I think that's why the word explore is one of the main pillars with why I do everything I do from a training point of view. It's because you've got a heavy Atlas stone at one end of the spectrum, and then you've got a stupidly long run at the other end. And there's lots of different exploration points along that spectrum, and I think there's lots of different value to extract from them. But I think people get too caught up in their own little boxes, thinking that this box is the best, that box is the best. Fuck you. Why are you doing that? Haha. Triathletes, why choose to be average at 3 sports rather than 1, says the average runner. And it's just like, well, why are we here, and why aren't we just happy that people are extracting value from things that they could otherwise not be doing? And I think you said something that was really at the core of how I think, which is this helping me? I can't remember how you worded it, but is this helping me be the person who I want to be, or the person who I want to become? And I can imagine you have a much better understanding of who that person is now than you did before the therapy, before the ultra running, for example. So who is that person, and sort of what are the values at the core of why you do what you do now?
There's also the accepting the fact that who I am now is going to be very different to the person I am in, like based on experience. But who I am now is someone that I feel like gratitude, like you mentioned, being grateful for what we get to do. I'm grateful. I'm at a point now where I feel like I'm grateful for as grateful as I can be for every single experience that's got me to this point today. And I feel like what I'm doing now is a reflection of those lessons. And who that person is someone that wants to, where I derive kind of value now, it comes from many different places, but, and I don't want it to sound wanky, like some sort of Miss World thing, but like the service to others, like I gain so much from that ultramarathon experience. It's the reason I'm coaching now is because I want to help people find their own version of whatever that was that I found in it. I'm really, that gets me going. Like well, that sounds a bit weird, but like it really excites me. Like the prospect of being able to help someone, like I wanted to be helped back when I was playing rugby, find that in themselves. So that's cool. But
you
also
want to give them the key.
I'm going to steal that. I need to give them the key.
Yeah, take it.
So that's one aspect of it. But also with a team sport, there's so much value to be drawn from that team sport and that environment and how that can lift everyone involved. And I found myself at a point now where I'm very grateful. It was a complete accident this happened, but I've been able to put on my own multi-stage ultramarathon. This will be the third year this year. And it's a 250k multi-stage event, and it's not a race. It's simply a challenge. So where there was conflict between individuals playing rugby, within this environment, there is no conflict between individuals. It's not a race. The whole purpose of the thing is to finish 250k, which, like I've said already, is a massive achievement in itself. And the way you get there is by supporting yourself, supporting others. And there's a team goal. There's a common goal. Like we spoke very briefly about, like that primal aspect. Like the goal was to get food for the camp. The goal is for everyone to raise money for a charity that is going to give back to people in the way that it's given to us. So who I am, I like to think is a representation of that environment. I'm trying to create that, like the sense of community, like in fact, I don't want to be bigging up this too much, but the kind of slogan that I came up with that maybe sums it up was in kind of 3 or 4 lines, and it was purpose beyond yourself, feeling that there's something bigger than, like it's bigger than you. It makes you very, very small in the best possible way. The purpose beyond yourself, it's the power in human connection, which is what that ultra environment creates. It's pursuing past physical and mental limits, which is growth, which is that part of that exploring what our potential is who can I become? And then the final line is together as one, which again is that tying into that community. So who I am is trying to be the person that represents those values. Whether I'm doing it well enough, I don't know. But I think if that's kind of a blueprint as to how I want to live, that's not fixed to ultramarathons. And I think that they're the underlying core values that I try to uphold. And as time progresses, and maybe my body can't do what it does in 10 years' time, or my passions and something that I'm curious about, it changes, and my life takes a different direction. Maybe I can cultivate those same values into what's next. So that's another very long-winded answer of kind of trying to describe who I am, I suppose.
So there we have it, an open discussion on why ultra-endurance training and training in general can be so life-changing and important for self-development. If you have any perspectives you'd like to share, please do comment them down below. Again, I am 4 days out from when this video is being uploaded to when I start running from here in Edinburgh to the top of Ben Nevis, 250 kilometers. And I'm very intimidated, very scared, but that is ultimately the point, because ultra-endurance training is meant to be scary, it's meant to be challenging, and it's meant to push your boundaries and your limits. And I am truly doing that. But I think the important message here is that, relatively speaking, for me, I've worked up incrementally over the years to be taking this on. But for you, it could be running your first ever kilometer unbroken. It could be running your first ever 5 kilometer unbroken. It could be training for the London Marathon. Whatever it may be, your mountain, your challenge, your goal is relative to ability, as it is to me. So I don't want you to ever look at what I'm doing or what anyone else is doing and think, wow, that's sort of what I should be aiming for. Everything is just forward motion, forward progress. And unfortunately for me, hopefully, if everything goes to plan with the 250, there will be another ring in the ladder that I'll probably find my brain exploring at some point. But you're all here for the ride because you've hit subscribe, haven't you? Other than that, please do comment with your perspective down below. Make sure that you like the video, and please do check out the podcast. It's also available on all major audio platforms, and there are 95 episodes to choose from with some guests that are far, far, far more intelligent and interesting than I. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.